Hi, this is Lou Pulsfer here, and I'm going to give you at least my take on what attracts Kickstarter support for board and card games. The reason I'm doing this is I recently had one of my games kickstarted through Worthington Publishing, and it was quite instructive. I've supported a few non-game, or rather non-board and card game Kickstarters, ones for dice or mats or other accessories. But I have not supported a board game or a card game. I'm old-fashioned. I'm 63. I figure that the game is likely to be published, and then I can decide whether I want to buy it or not. I don't have to get in early on. I'm not into instant gratification. But clearly the people who support games on Kickstarter are different from this old guy. So I'm trying to figure it out. Now as I go along, I'm going to use the abbreviation KS for Kickstarter at times, and I'm only talking about Kickstarter for board and card games, not for video games or anything else. It's different from normal game sales. It's a dream machine. I recently said games are works of and for the mind, not for the eyes. That's true of traditional style games. They're about thinking, not about looks. But that's not how Kickstarter works. Kickstarter is a dream system, not a pre-order system. It's used sometimes for a pre-order system for an established franchise. But it's the dream system where the excitement happens. People go all in for dreams, even other people's dreams. They don't go all in for pre-ordering. They don't go all in for pros. They want to feel like they're part of something new and cool. So on Kickstarter, you're selling your dream. I received a tweet out of the blue from somebody I'd never heard of one day. Soccer and design lovers should have this board game, RT, and help making our dream come true. And that was exactly making, not make. RT, by the way, means retweet. For those of you who are not on Twitter, it's send to your followers. Make our dream come true. That's what they're offering, and that's what many people want to participate in. They want to be something more than a consumer. Add to this that many people nowadays value intentions as much as actions. This is especially true of young people, I think. Older people tend to remember the old phrase, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. They want to see actions. But young people have a different point of view. I don't know why that's so, but it seems to be so. So, if someone expresses the intention to publish a game, that's good enough for many younger people, but not for many older people. Backers want to feel part of that creation. They want to see their name as a contributor. They love polls and votes about features to include in a game. They love reaching stretch goals that change the game. That's all part of being part of the process. Consider the popularity of paid betas in video games, especially on Steam. People pay for a beta version of the game, but then they can influence how that game turns out in the end, and that's something that people find very attractive. The same thing is happening on Kickstarter with board and card games. Now the other thing that's very noticeable is eye candy sells, especially on Kickstarter. Miniature figures really sell, but lots of cool art can also work. The quality of the actual gameplay is secondary with many buyers, many backers. Or maybe they assume the gameplay will be as good as the minis or the art, and of course there's little or no correlation between the two. Cool dice even. Several of the projects that I've supported are for unusual dice. Are people looking for a bargain? That doesn't seem to be the main impetus unless it's acting as a pre-order sort of P500 system. If you've never heard of P500, some companies will prepare a game to be manufactured, show it online, ask people to pre-order, and when they get 500 pre-orders or whatever number, then they'll send it off to the printer because they have enough money to be able to afford without much risk. But people aren't looking for a big discount. James Matha, who is one of the people I follow about Kickstarter, suggests a $5 discount is sufficient. What about pre-reviews? Maybe it's my age, but I see pre-reviews as a call for shenanigans. And then paying somebody to do a review for you? Why would anyone trust such things? But evidently people do. And this appears to come back to intentions. Younger people don't seem to be suspicious of what might be happening with these pre-reviews, especially the paid ones. If a large company did this, if the government did this, I'll bet there would be a heck of a lot of suspicion. But in Kickstarter, it's a matter of the little guy's dream and trust in that dream. Momentum is important in Kickstarter. It's not just important in sports. There's a bandwagon effect and a reverse bandwagon. This is one reason why, if you can afford to, you need to go low with your goal and then push the stretch goals to help encourage momentum. Most of the Kickstarters I've supported had already met their goal and were working on the stretch goals. If you haven't made the goal as the project winds down, then people look at kicktrack.com, which will predict failure, and potential backers just won't bother, or worse, they'll pull out. They only have so much money to spend, they'll pull out and put it somewhere else. Oddball pledge offers seem to work. And they're worth trying because there's a lot of money involved. Autographed games, autographed by the designer, play a game with the designer, get a lengthy phone call from the designer, and so forth. I've seen at least one offer where the designer of an RPG offered to fly to the backer's location and GM a game for the backer and friends. And at least one person took him up. In the case of Sea Kings, toward the end, there was a $499 pledge level where people can go to PresCon in Charlottesville, Virginia next year, 2015, and they can play a game with the designer and meet the publishers and sort of party and celebrate Sea Kings. 3 people took that up. It'll be interesting to meet them, and I will offer to let them play a version that virtually nobody else has played, because I'm working on a more wargamey version of the game. Those who are highly professional can actually erect a barrier between them and potential backers. It can be a detriment. The backers think they're pros, they don't need help. The backers want to help people who need help. Pros are offered using KS as a pre-order system, not a dream system, and that appeals to a different group. It appeals to people who are already familiar with the company or with the game. It's newbies, the little guys, who elicit sympathy and perhaps empathy. Whereas, for example, me as a designer does little for KS because I'm an established designer. I have a track record. I'm old as well. It does a lot more for normal marketing and sales. Now the exception is when there's a new edition or a special reprint or a continuation of a franchise that the audience already knows, they've already heard about it, and they'll support it consequently. And if it's got a lot of eye candy, especially miniatures, that goes even farther, like Age of Conan or the special edition of Ogre. We've got to the point where we have separate categories of publishers. We have traditional publishers who self-fund and use traditional distribution. Fantasy Flight is the most well-known of those. We have P500 publishers who do pre-orders and then direct sales and distribution, such as GMT Games. And then we have Kickstarter publishers who go direct via Kickstarter and don't do a lot of distribution. And we have one company, Game Salute, that may be unique because they do more Kickstarters than anybody, but then they do their own direct sales and distribution. Now, is Kickstarter a good gauge of how popular a game will be, how well it will sell? I doubt it greatly. It's not the games that sell the Kickstarter to backers, it's the dreams and the intentions that sell to backers. But that's not how games sell in a shop, nor online. Consumers may not be real smart, but sometimes anyway, but they're trying to evaluate the game, not dreams or intentions. The game's right there in front of them if they're in a shop. So stores and Kickstarter have different clienteles, and what will sell in one won't necessarily sell in the other. Now, I'm going to make some generalizations or quote generalizations that might apply to Kickstarter backers of board and card games. Keep in mind, no generalization is always true, not even this one. A generalization is how most are, not everyone. So, Matt Green recently described the audience of Dice Tower as, quote, Chrome-obsessed 21 to 40-year-olds with short attention spans, unquote. This probably could apply to the largest portion of people who back board and card games on Kickstarter. Now, one publisher said about Kickstarter specifically, the sense of entitlement that pervades chaos is a difficult thing to combat. And this fits with Matt's description, and it's characteristic of the millennial generation. And these are not generalizations that I think would apply to people who buy games via traditional distribution. So again, what does well on Kickstarter is not necessarily what will do well otherwise. So, to succeed on Kickstarter, it helps to sell a dream, to seem like a little guy even if you're not, to offer participation in the form and content of the final product, to appear to need help even if you don't, to offer eye candy especially, or go to an established clientele. A little addendum. Do card games do less well than board games on Kickstarter? I don't know. I've read that. If so, why would that be so? One, there are no miniatures in card games. There's no eye candy of that sort. Second, card games seem simpler, smaller, less a big deal than board games. And so I think they're less worthy of that all-in excitement that's typical of a very successful Kickstarter project. For resources here, read anything by James Matha about Kickstarter, anything by Jamie Stegmaier. I understand that Fred Hicks is a wizard at Kickstarter for RPG stuff. According to Kickstarter itself, as of the 13th of November, 2014, 4,438 games had been successfully funded on Kickstarter.